adjust the microphone so we can hear you, and for the record, say spell your first and last name, please.
Sure. My name is Officer Curtis Davis, Curtis Davis.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, can you tell us how it is that you're employed, please?
I'm a police officer with the City of Los Angeles.
Okay, and how many years have you been so employed?
A little over 22.
And where are you assigned?
Currently assigned to Robbery Homicide's Investigative Support Section, and I have collateral duties as an FBI Task Force officer.
And what are your collateral duties relating to the FBI Task Force?
I perform the same service for the FBI that I do for Robbery Homicide, which is cyber-related investigations.
Okay, and what are cyber-related investigations? What does that mean for, like, plain speak?
Sure. Basically, it's digital investigations, and I focus on what I call the 3 C's of cyber: computers, cryptography, probably better known as encryption, and communication.
Okay. And how many years have you held that position?
Nearly 2 decades working in that particular field.
And as an investigative support officer assigned to Robbery Homicide Division, what is it that your job entails?
So the best comparison I like to use is digital archaeology. And I use that because when I was a young man, I actually wanted to be an archaeologist. I worked one summer out on a dig, and I was given a small gardening tool called a trowel, sifting through the dirt over the summertime looking for artifacts. And we ended up with a 10-foot ditch with a lot of artifacts. 30 years later, I now sit at a computer with a mountain of data, and I'm essentially doing the same sort of work. I'm looking for what we call in the forensic community digital artifacts, indicators of some sort of human activity, device activity, account activity for all the different technologies that we've come to use in the modern world.
Okay. And how many years have you been assigned to RHD in that capacity?
Just shy of 9 years.
Okay. And is there an area that you consider to be your area of expertise within this area of digital archaeology?
Yes.
What is that?
I am a subject matter expert particularly on what's known as open source information, which includes social media. It is information that any member of the public can access, typically on the internet.
Okay. And in that capacity, do you often assist the investigating officers at Robbery Homicide Division with either technical aspects or cyber investigations relating to their cases?
Yes, exactly. I provide advice. I sometimes learn about new technologies as they emerge. And as you can imagine, most investigations nowadays have some sort of digital nexus.
Okay. And are you also often tapped in order to process information or verify or analyze digital evidence on various homicide cases or business records?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your education and training in this area, if you would.
Sure.
Other than the digging with the trowel.
Right. Well, I have a degree in intelligence management from Henley Putnam University with a cyber emphasis, and I'm a graduate of the University of Southern California's Basic and Intermediate Cyber Schools for Law Enforcement. In addition to that, I have over 200 hours of training from various specialty organizations, including the Joint Regional Intelligence Center, BK Forensics, Search.org, and so on, including sometimes the service providers themselves who've provided training. So, for example, training from Apple on their services.
Okay. Specifically for law enforcement?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And in terms of your degree in intelligence management, did that include items such as, let's say, cell phones, computer hardware, counterintelligence, computer drives, internet?
Yes, the full spectrum of modern technology, from computers to mobile devices, information that's readily available on the internet, information we can seek via business records and search warrants and so forth.
And prior to your employment with the LAPD, did you also work in this field for a couple of years?
Yes, I actually did, and that became kind of the groundwork for my interest in this when I became a police officer. I worked as a freelance web and graphic designer in the late 1990s and early 2000s.
Okay. All right. With respect to the case regarding the murder of Fabio Sementilli and the defendant Monica Sementilli and Robert Baker, did you create an overall presentation with respect to all of the information, or at least a summary of the information that you reviewed in this case?
Yes, I did.
And Your Honor, that is a PowerPoint that I believe has been saved onto a CD. May that CD be marked, please, as equals 156. Do you want me to mark everything related to his presentation under 156, or do you want me to start?
Right under 156.
Yeah. All right. In your PowerPoint on slide 4, it looks like you have under number 2 a heading that's called methodology. So can you give us an idea of the type of records that you reviewed in this case?
Sure. This is just a summary, essentially, of the work that I performed in this particular investigation. The records that I reviewed include forensic examinations of various cell phones, business records, and open source information or information available on the internet.
All right. Let's move to, actually, before we even start with this, we were just hearing about from Detective Carlos Camacho the arrest that took place on June 14th of 2017. Were you part of the arrest team on that date?
Yes, I was.
So, were you by yourself that day, or did you have a partner?
I had a partner,
And do you recall who that was?
Detective Carmen Fabian. I believe she has a different last name now, but I know her as Carmen Fabian.
Okay. And were you responsible for you and your partner initiating the traffic stop that day on a black Mustang belonging to the defendant?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And was the defendant inside of the black Mustang?
Yes,
And what seat was she in?
in the passenger seat.
All right. Do you see her here in court today?
Yes, I do.
And at that time, did you also come in contact with the driver of the vehicle?
Yes.
And who is that?
Mr. Robert Baker?
Okay. And approximately what time did you make that stop?
It was early afternoon, I'd say about 1 o'clock p.m. in the afternoon.
Okay. And were you responsible for placing the defendant along with Robert Baker under arrest?
Yes.
Did you advise them at that time of what they were being arrested for?
Yes.
Did you tell them that they were being arrested for the murder of Fabio Sementilli?
Correct.
And at some point in time, did you and your partner have them step out of the Mustang?
Yes.
And then what did you do with them, if anything?
I placed them in the black and white vehicle that we were using to conduct the traffic stop.
That was a black and white police vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. And where were they placed within the vehicle?
To the rear compartment.
Okay. The back seat?
Yes.
Together?
Yes.
And was that a vehicle that also was equipped with a recording device?
Yes, it was.
And subsequent to that time, were they transported separately to the closest LAPD station, which was Van Nuys?
Because Van Nuys has a jail, yes.
Okay. And were you responsible at that time for impounding the defendant's black Mustang?
I started the impound, yes.
Can you exhibit 14? Do you recognize this individual?
Yes, I do.
And this, Your Honor, is exhibit 14 with a red number 2 in the bottom left corner, and you recognize this as Robert Baker, who was in the driver's seat?
Yes.
And showing you exhibit 147 has a 2 in the bottom left corner. Is this the black Ford Mustang that they were driving?
Yes, it is.
All right. And let's look at slide number 7. And tell us what you documented here with respect to account connections.
Sure. So this is an example of a business record. In this particular case, it includes basic subscriber information from AT&T pertaining to Monica Sementilli, and listed on this basic subscriber sheet is an email address, kalmati-mo@hotmail.com, and a phone number, 818-424-4213.
Okay. And it also appears to have a home address, correct?
Yes, it does.
So this would be the type of information that you are familiar with receiving from business records. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Sources of information. This is slide number 5 of your PowerPoint. Does this document the various types of information that you were concerned with in your portion of your investigation?
Yes, these are my sources.
Okay. So you were looking at the extractions once they were already done from cell phones, correct?
Correct.
And did you use some type of software in order to view the forensic information from the cell phones?
Yes. Mhm.
What was that?
It's a software called Cellbrite, and it's an industry standard best practice in the use of analyzing, extracting data from mobile devices.
Okay. That allows you to visualize the information in various different versions depending on how you filter it, correct?
Yes.
All right. So in this case, you looked at the defendant's iPhone 7 as well as an LG pad, correct?
Correct.
And Baker's Samsung's, he had an S4 and an S8, correct?
Yes.
And along the course of your investigation, you also uncovered some information relative to a Samsung S6, correct?
Yes. Mhm.
All right. And in terms of business records, you either authored various search warrants or reviewed records that were obtained via search warrant from various companies.
That's right.
All right. Your Honor, I have a stipulation. Can I have this marked as, I guess it would be part of 156?
The stipulation can be marked separately as
Well, marked
157.
157?
Yes.
All right. Relating to business records, and I believe that these records will be contained on a flash drive. Would you like me to mark them also as 157? Is it the flash? Yes.
No, 158.
All right. We'll make the flash 158.
Very good.
All right, so we talked about some of the business records, and then you said in addition to the business records, you also looked at information that was in open source that would include social media, correct?
That's right.
Show us, or explain to us, please, if you would, what we see here in your slide number 8.
Sure. This is a link chart, and I create a link chart because I'm a visual guy, It helps me understand that when I, as the investigator, looking at digital artifacts or digital evidence, these accounts, these services don't typically exist in a silo or a vacuum. They often corroborate one another. So this shows the linkages between, for example, in the middle, the iPhone 7, the phone number 818-424-4213, the connection to the social media account on Instagram, Monica_Sementilli, usage of WhatsApp and Viber, association with the service provider AT&T, the connection to the email address, the primary email address, kalmatumo@hotmail.com, and an IP address that belongs, at least at that time, January 2017, to the Sementilli residence, and that is 104.181.138.147.
So it gives us a way to visualize the information and how you might come across the same information in multiple different sources.
Exactly.
All right. Let's look at the next one, another link chart that you created here. What do we see here in slide 9?
This is a little bit more of a complex link chart, but same principle, same idea. Essentially, the center of this chart would be Mr. Robert Baker, and it shows connections to multiple devices, a Samsung S4 and an S8, and in particular, connections to multiple email addresses. And those email addresses include different domains, such as a website, domains like oeg1.com, rball1.com, and then a connection to Mr. Christopher Austin, and an instruction to download WhatsApp, which we'll look at shortly.
Okay. And that came through a Facebook message, correct? From
Yes.
business records that were received. All right. Let's look at the next slide. What do we see here in slide 11?
This is kind of my introduction to what are known as Google location services. And Google location services operate predominantly for folks who have Android smartphones. The user of an Android can choose to turn on these services, and when they do, those services will essentially track the phone as it's moving around in the world. And it does this using different types of technology, including cell sites, including Wi-Fi, and as you can imagine, in an urban environment, there are Wi-Fi signals all around us. And then out on the street, when there are no other signals available, GPS from the satellites that are in orbit around the Earth.
What do we see here in slide 12 relative to Google records that you reviewed relating to Baker's OEG Inc. at google.com?
This is the basic subscriber information for OEG Inc. at gmail.com. It's similar to the subscriber information from AT&T that we saw in the previous slide. Almost all companies retain this as kind of a customer database. And in this particular basic subscriber information, it has a list of the Google services that are turned on. And one of those, in the right-hand side, it's my highlight, location history.
Okay. What do we see here then in slide 13?
Accompanying that basic subscriber data from Google is an Excel spreadsheet. That's what we see here. And this is the location data itself. Thousands and thousands of rows capturing the movements of different Google devices associated to OEG Inc. at gmail.com as those devices move around in the world.
Okay. And we'll see how that comes into play, I think, in your presentation in a couple minutes. So here in slide 14, again, this would be reviewing some of the records relating to Baker's Samsung S4 through the Celebrate software program, correct?
Yes.
And what is it that you've highlighted here?
So similar to the link chart, we're now getting into the details of how these accounts corroborate one another. And this is from Mr. Robert Baker's Samsung S4, indicates that that device was associated to that primary Gmail email, OEG Inc.
Okay. And in the next slide, slide 15.
This is also an artifact extracted from that Samsung S4 device that shows that the Wi-Fi access point Sementilli _ 5G EXT was stored in that Samsung S4.
Okay. And it gives us a particular date and time, correct?
Yes, it does.
And what's the date and time?
Date and time, June 28th, 2016, and that is 3:28 p.m. UTC.
What does that mean, UTC?
Sure. So UTC it stands for Coordinated Universal Time. I don't know why they switched the letters, but that's just how it is. Essentially, if we think about computing, people are using phones and computers all over the world. In order to have a common frame of reference, computers and various services that are associated with computing and mobile devices tend to use UTC time as kind of the central establishing point for a time zone. It's Zulu or Greenwich Mean Time also.
Okay. And so how does that time correlate with time here in California on June 28th?
So this would be, because of daylight savings time, it's either -7 hours or -8 hours. I always use a converter to verify. But just anecdotally looking at the June date, that is typically in the summertime, it would be -7.
Okay. So that would be what time here?
Let's see.
That would be about 8:28 in the morning?
Thank you, yes.
Okay. So that would mean that his Samsung S4 connects to the Sementilli Wi-Fi and it stores that information in the phone at that point in time going forward?
Yes, whenever we need to add a Wi-Fi, a new Wi-Fi, we have to put in the name and the password, and then the device stores it until we choose to perhaps delete it or keep it.
Okay. And what do we see here on slide 16 regarding the defendant's iPhone?
This is Mrs. Monica Sementilli's iPhone, and it also includes the same Wi-Fi name, the Sementilli _ 5G EXT.
Okay. And in the next slide, slide 17, we have again, it looks like a Google Earth photograph. What are we seeing here?
Yes. So I took Google Earth, which is now free and open source, and I took a slice of the thousands of rows of Google location data, and just to look to corroborate some information on that particular approximate date and time, June 28th, 2016, Mr. Robert Baker's Samsung S4 shows in the vicinity of the Sementilli residence.
Okay. So he could be in the residence, he could be in front of the residence, but we're talking about within meters of the residence.
Correct.
Okay. So it has to be within range of the home router, correct?
Yes, whatever distance that particular router sends its signal out, sometimes it can go half a block or so.
And you've been in that home before when a search warrant was served for the router, correct?
Yes, I was.
Looking now at slide 18, can you describe for us what we see here?
Sure. I took that same spreadsheet of Google location data and then I put it into some software that allows me to map it and actually animate it over time. And what this essentially shows is the Samsung S4 and any other related devices associated to Mr. Robert Baker and that oeginc@gmail.com in the vicinity of the Queen Victoria Road address between February 1st, 2016 and January 1st, 2017.
So during that time, we're basically seeing the blue dots represent the volume of times he's been to that location?
Correct. And it's just to clarify, it's not every dot is a new trip. Those are the logged locations by Google, and so they can be in clusters.
Okay. And so at some point we see in the next slide, slide 19, clusters as well. So what does this particular slide show us?
Essentially the same data, but we're looking at it in a single still. And top down, it just shows the volume, all the different logged activity in and around that particular address.
Now, and is this also in between that same time period that we saw on the last slide, that was February 1st of 2016 to January of 2017?
It's approximate, but this one goes a little bit further, January 1st to January 1st, 2016 to 2017.
Okay. And was there a particular gap in the data that you noted?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So in, I believe, January, late January, the Google location data essentially stops.
January of 2017?
2017, yes.
Okay.
So thousands and thousands of rows of data. Suddenly we have a very obvious gap between whatever date it was in January and June.
Again, June of 2017?
Yes.
Would that be consistent with Baker using maybe another device that doesn't have location history turned on the device?
Yes.
Permissions like we talked about with respect to one of the previous slides that you described?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And then did you note that that activity resumed in early June of 2017?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And is that what you, looking at the next slide, slide 20, is this a visual depiction of that gap that you talked about?
Yes.
Okay. Looking at slide, I think this is slide 21. Can you describe for us what we see here?
Sure. I just remapped the location data once it resumed again in the vicinity of the residence back in June 2017.
Okay. So that would be dated June 1st to July 1st of 2017?
Yes, ma'am.
Noting, of course, that they were arrested, the defendant and Baker were arrested on June 14th of 2017.
Yes.
Okay. Looking at slide 22, as you were talking about open source information and various connections, what do we see here?
This is also basic subscriber information. This particular record comes from Facebook, now known as Meta. At the top of a Facebook record, it shows the subscriber, in this case, the name first and last is listed as Robert Baker. There are several email addresses. One of them in particular is management@oeg1.com.
And looking at the following slide, slide 23. This is a Facebook conversation now that takes place between Baker and an individual by the name of, last name of Spence.
Yes.
And there's some conversation here about the defendant taking place.
Yes.
And what's the date that we're looking at here?
November 3rd, 2016.
Okay. Looking at slide 24, this is again, the Facebook messaging going back and forth between Baker and Michael Spence. Yes?
Yes.
And if we look at, I think this is slide 25, is this a continuation?
Yes, it is.
Of the same conversation?
Yes.
Okay. Talking about meeting up at some point in the future?
Yes.
Okay. And if we look at slide 26 here, again, conversation between Baker talking about being in a relationship with the defendant for a year now, correct?
Correct.
And slide 27, again, a continuation of this conversation.
Yes.
And at the end, actually, this is a new conversation. This is now a conversation between Baker and an individual by the name of Ron Ray.
Correct.
And what's the date of this conversation?
November 12th, 2016.
And that conversation, it looks like, started on the previous slide, which was slide 26. Correct?
Yes.
Again, talking about his relationship with the defendant.
Correct.
And on, let's see, slide 27, it looks like Ron Ray is asking for a picture.
Yes.
And then Baker sends Ron Ray a picture. Is that right?
Yes.
And that's, again, part of this Facebook messaging conversation that takes place on November 12th of 2016.
Yes.
And Baker says they're not living together yet, but it's coming soon.
Correct.
And then here in slide 30, what did we see? You blacked something out per court order.
It's a photograph of Mrs. Monica Sementilli.
And was it a photo where she was, let's say, part of her body might have been visible?
Yes.
And again, in this slide, slide 31, a picture of the defendant with Baker that he sends to Ron Ray.
Yes.
Okay. And does the conversation appear to continue here in slide 32?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Talking about their relationship and how happy they are.
Yes.
Okay. And here in slide 33, does this continue on the conversation between Baker and Ron Ray?
Yes.
Ray talking about his relationship with his wife, Michelle.
Yes.
Okay. And in the next slide, slide 34, a photograph that Ron Ray sends of himself with his wife.
Correct.
Okay. And at the very top, Baker sends a message saying that he and the defendant are planning on going on a vacation to Vegas soon.
Yes.
And that they're going to hang out with Ron Ray and his wife.
Correct.
Is this the same date that we talked about before, November 12th of 2016?
Yes, ma'am. November 12th.
Okay. And looking at slide 35, again, part of the conversation talking about Robert Baker talking about the defendant.
Yes.
Same thing in slide 36, a continuation of the same conversation.
Yes.
Okay. And also in slide 37,
Correct.
asking if she knows about Baker's background.
Yes.
Okay. And in slide 38, is this a continuation
Yes, it is.
where he's talking about his background in the adult porn business?
That's correct.
Okay. And conversations again on slide 39 about where the defendant and Baker met at the gym.
Yes.
Continuing on slide 40, that she has a little money and that he's told the defendant about Tracy and his prior relationships.
Objection, on account of this testifying immediately.
Still real.
Is that what it says?
Yes.
Slide 41, what do we see here?
That's a continuation of the conversation between Mr. Baker and Mr. Ray.
Okay. And at some point, Mr. Ray says, we'll come out for a weekend.
Yes.
Okay. And so they're talking about getting together, and in slide 42, the conversation continuing from the same date, correct?
Yes, still November 12th.
Okay. And slide 43. Still a continuation of the same conversation?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. let's talk about encrypted apps. Show us or explain to us what you've described here again in sort of a link chart in slide 45 with respect to encrypted apps.
Sure. So many smartphone applications nowadays are incorporating the use of encryption. And essentially what that means is that the companies themselves are not even able to read the messages. There's no backdoor for the content of the communication. And the best way that I can explain what encryption is to give you the example of if I were to send a letter and we had an agreement, I'm going to send a letter to you, but here's the key, here's the code. Every letter that I write to you inside the envelope of the letter is going to be moved from A to C, B to D, and so forth, all the way down the alphabet. And you and I are the only ones that know that that is the key. On the outside of the envelope, anyone can read that. That's what the companies can read. I mail you the letter, you have the key, you take it, you decode it, and now you can read the letter. What computing has done is taken that same concept and just used way more complicated math to make it almost impossible. So we're no longer at the A to C, B to D. They're using algorithms to make these encrypted messages essentially foolproof.
So by the use of algorithms, it ensures only that the sender and the receiver, the two people on either side of these messages, can read it.
Yes.
Okay. Does that also include law enforcement?
Law enforcement cannot typically access the content of these messages either. There is an exception sometimes on smartphone forensic exams we can, depending on which device it is and what the permissions are set up on that particular device. But if we're talking about business records from the companies themselves, we can't access those messages.
So does that include if you were to look at the actual extraction of a cell phone, you would not still, even if you were able to extract data from a cell phone, if they were using, let's say, an encrypted app, you would not be able to unscramble the data to read it.
Sometimes we can. It varies.
Were you able to in this case?
In some cases.
Okay. Did the defendant and Robert Baker use encrypted apps?
Yes.
In 2017, was it as common as it is now? To that we see that people who travel internationally sometimes use that in order to avoid, let's say, like data fees.
Objection, no foundation.
It was not as common in 2017.
Was it common in 2017 that people who are involved in criminal activity would often use encrypted apps to communicate in order to prevent law enforcement from being able to read what they're messaging about?
Objection, mistake.
Yes, and they're overruled. Let's go.
So in my experience, which spans many varieties of cases, the criminal element are often very tech savvy and do adopt things like encryption early on to essentially try to evade or thwart law enforcement detection.
And what happens, let's say, if the encrypted app were to be deleted from the phone? Does that also tend to delete all the data associated with that encrypted app?
It can further complicate our ability to look at any data that might be left behind on the phone.
So if one were to delete an encrypted application, would it also tend to delete messaging from or associated to that particular application, that data?
Yes.
Is it also possible that although the application and therefore the messaging might be deleted, that you may still be able to find artifacts indicative of prior usage of an encrypted app.
Yes, that is the case.
Okay. So what types of encrypted apps, or which encrypted apps did you find evidence of in this particular case?
In this case, WhatsApp and something called Viber.
Viber.
Yes.
Okay. Looking at slide 46, tell us what we see here.
This is a screenshot from Viber and their website. And on April 19th, 2016, they have a company blog that announced, today we're excited to announce that our users will be able to securely communicate across all of their devices through end-to-end encryption.
And that was as of April of 2016.
Correct.
Okay. And so what does it mean to have end-to-end encryption? Is that again what we were talking about, from the sender to the receiver?
Yes, essentially the service provider, the company that provides that app, has zero knowledge in terms of the content, because they themselves do not have the capability to decrypt the content of the message.
Okay. So again, that would mean that as a law enforcement officer, you would not be able to read those communications.
Yes, ma'am.
And looking here at slide 47, tell us what we are seeing, what you found evidence of with respect to the defendant's iCloud account.
Yes, so this is an Apple iCloud account, which comes in the form of a spreadsheet for this particular file associated with Mrs. Monica Sementilli. There is a registration email there, kalmadimo@hotmail.com, and it shows the actual installation of the Viber app per Apple's records.
Installation as of what date?
Let's see, April 2016.
And this is through, as you were showing us those linkage charts at the beginning, through a different type of business record, through the actual business records for the defendant's Apple iCloud account.
That's right.
Okay. And is there also information on this particular slide, I think it's 47, yes, that gives you information with respect to the actual data or the usage? You're filtering, it looks like, from September of 2015 through April of 2017, correct?
I'm sorry, filter, not necessarily the right terminology. Can I describe the...
Yeah, and I'm just trying to get to the fact that, I'll let you describe it, but I noticed that you have an indication at the bottom that there's an IP address associated with this iCloud account.
Yes, that's correct.
So tell us what we're looking at here.
Sure. So in addition to the installation of Viber and several purchases that were made for services with Viber, it logged the IP address at the time of those transactions, which was 104.181.138.147. The IP address I know to be associated during a significant time period, circa 2016 to early 2017, with the Sementilli residence.
The same IP address that we looked at earlier with respect to some of the other documentation, including, I believe it was Baker's, one of his Samsungs, correct?
That's right.
Okay. And so this is also purchases within the application itself?
Yes. Viber has some sort of sticker or emoji function where people can purchase sticker packs, and that's what those transactions were.
Okay. Sticker packs for emojis such as if you were to send somebody a message, you could include an emoji like a heart or some other type of emoji on your message. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, similar to other modern messaging applications where users are able to use small graphical icons that represent happiness, sadness, laughter, hearts, and so on.
Okay. Looking at slide 48, is this another record that corroborates what you saw with respect to the usage of Viber through business records associated with the defendant's AT&T account?
Yes, it is.
And what did you indicate here on this particular slide, slide 48?
So this particular business record is a long text file that includes the AT&T web history associated with the 818-424-4213 phone number, and it logs web access to particular content, and the ones I've highlighted here in red include Viber.com, which is the Viber service.
Okay. So that also corroborates, again, the usage of this application during a period of time through the defendant's AT&T web history, correct?
Yes.
And approximately how many entries did you find between the period of installation in April of 2016 through, let's say, January 17th that you've indicated at the bottom of 2017?
433 entries in this particular record.
So what does that mean when you have an entry?
These companies keep their records in different formats, and that's why they look different when I show the screenshots of them. In the case of AT&T, they typically do records at 5-minute intervals, and the 433 just happens to be the way AT&T keeps track of the individual services and websites that people go to at those 5-minute increments.
So if we're looking at 433 entries, is that just between the defendant and Robert Baker?
Don't know for sure. We would need a larger swath of data from Viber to corroborate that.
Okay. What do we see here in slide 49 that you've captured?
Sure, and I apologize for the small print. It's the only way I could fit it on one slide. This is also from the Apple iCloud records, and it shows essentially app updates from the Apple Store for Viber over a period of time from April 20th, 2016 to January 4th, 2017.
Okay. So we know that it had to have been in use because it was installed at least during that time period.
Correct.
Okay. And what do we see here on the Celebrate report in slide 50?
So now this is a log entry directly from the phone, the iPhone that was associated with Mrs. Monica Sementilli. And this is a specific artifact known as a log entry kept by the device, indicating that there was Viber on the particular device.
And that was on the date of the murder in this case, correct? January 23rd of 2017?
That is correct.
Okay. So this is part of the forensic phone extraction that you viewed, correct?
Yes, it is.
All right. What do we see here that you've captured in slide 51 with respect to the Viber business records for the defendant's phone number?
Now we have the Viber business records from Viber as a business entity themselves, directly from them.
And you've indicated on here that there's 5,752 messages to and from the defendant's phone number, correct?
That is correct.
And all of these messages are between, as I asked in the prior question, the defendant and Robert Baker's phone, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that's just the month of January of 2017 alone?
Yes, ma'am.
The 5,752 messages between them?
Yes.
Does that also, once again, include the Sementilli Wi-Fi address?
Not that I can see here.
Let's look here at slide 52, I believe. What did you capture here?
Yeah, so this is part of the Viber records that they produced. And this is a Viber call history, so telephone calls. that are essentially routed through the Viber service. And this includes a caller and recipient IP address as part of that particular log file. That does have that same Wi-Fi address, 104.181.138.147.
So in addition to being able to send messages through this encrypted application, you can also make phone calls through the application.
Yes.
Okay. So what is it that you've highlighted here?
These are all the instances where that particular IP address shows in the record.
Okay. The Sementilli home IP address.
Correct.
Okay. And again, these would be this would be part of the record of the phone calls between the defendant and Baker in January of 2017.
Yes.
What do we see here in slide 53 that you've captured?
This is some data extracted from Mrs. Sementilli's iPhone that also shows phone calls that match the business records that were obtained from Viber. They show that there was a Viber contact tied to Mr. Robert Baker's number and given kind of a username of Louisa, and that these calls were deleted.
And I've note that you noted at the very end there that Baker's middle name is Lewis.
Yes.
Okay. When you say that the Viber contact for Baker's phone number was deleted, what does that mean?
According to the forensic data in the phone, and that's the column I've highlighted on the right-hand side with the red box, the calls were deleted from, or attempted to be deleted from the phone.
Okay. But they still came through in the extraction. At least you could see remnants or artifacts from that. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So at some time prior to their arrest on June 14th of 2017, when this particular cell phone was seized, the defendant attempted to delete the contact for Baker.
I'm cautious about saying who deleted what because I'm not present for that, but there was data that was deleted.
Okay. What do we see here in slide 54?
So I created a chart in Excel just showing for that approximate month period of time in January 2017 the volume of communications traffic between the phone number associated to Robert Baker and the phone number associated with Mrs. Sementilli on the Viber app.
And that again is just for the activity during the month of January of 2017?
Correct.
A timeline for the date of January 22nd of 2017. It is 4 pages in length. May be marked as People's 159. Showing you the front page of Exhibit 159 that is 4 pages in length. Does this contain the vital communications between the defendant and Baker just for the date of January 22nd of 2017?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have another timeline that is 4 pages in length again, and this is just for the date of January 23rd of 2017. May it be marked as People's 160.
Amen.
With respect to Exhibit 160, does this also document the communications from the defendant, including her communications to Baker on the day of the murder, January 23rd?
Yes.
Looking at slide 56, can you describe, I'm sorry, this is slide 55, what you've captured here?
Yes, this is another screenshot showing some of the messaging that took place between the phone number associated to Mr. Baker and the phone number associated to Mrs. Sementilli via Viber on the afternoon of January 23rd, 2017.
Just the afternoon.
Yes.
And which hours is this between?
This is, let's see, 17, it's 5:48 to 8:14. This is essentially Eastern time, so we back it up 3 hours. So 2:48 to 5:14.
5:14.
Yes.
Looking at slide 56, Viber usage with respect to Baker's Samsung S4, what did you capture here?
This is another artifact. This one is from Mr. Baker's Samsung S4. It shows that Viber was in use on that device going all the way back to 2015.
And the following slide, slide 57, what is this?
This is a photograph recovered from the business records from Mr. Robert Baker's Dropbox account. And in this particular image was recovered from the Dropbox account entitled viberimage.jpg.
So what does that mean?
Somebody, and I can't say who, named the file Viber image.
Okay. And this is, again, on Baker's Dropbox account.
Correct.
Contained within his Dropbox account.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. What do we see here in slide 58? Again, a linkage chart.
So as you know, I like these link charts. This is one for Viber in particular, and essentially it shows the use of Viber between the iPhone associated to Mrs. Sementilli and the Samsung S4 associated with Mr. Baker, and how those accounts, many of which we've just reviewed, all connect and overlap with each other.
The Samsung, in this case, the S4.
Yes.
Okay. And this is based on the various business records, such as what we see here, the AT&T business records or Dropbox business records, Viber records that we've been talking about.
Yes.
As well as, obviously, the data from the forensic extraction of their cell phones.
Correct.
All right. What do we see here in slide 59, which I believe you referenced at the beginning?
Yes, this was in one of my earlier link charts, and this is an artifact recovered from Mr. Baker's Samsung S4 in reference to a Facebook Messenger chat between himself and an account associated to Mr. Christopher Austin, and the content of that is download WhatsApp on your phone.
What is WhatsApp?
WhatsApp is one of the most popular chat applications in the world. It was purchased by Facebook, now known as Meta. It's used all over the world to facilitate instant messaging and phone calls. And it is end-to-end encrypted.
So once again, this is an application where you can message, or as we saw with Viber, you can make phone calls through the app.
Yes.
What's the purpose of that, making phone calls through the app?
It can vary. Sometimes, particularly with international audiences, it enables folks to keep in touch with each other without paying the astronomical fees from direct cellular phone calls.
Okay. So you said voice calls can be made. Can one also make video calls?
Yes.
We talked about sending messages,
Yes.
documents,
Yes.
videos.
Yes.
What do we see here in slide 60?
This is one of those basic subscriber information sheets. In this particular WhatsApp account is associated with Mr. Baker's 213-272-1093 phone number. And even though WhatsApp is encrypted, they do keep some data on their customers. And one of the things in this particular record is a list of all the contacts. And so underneath that top portion where it designates whose account it is, it's a list of all the phone numbers in the particular WhatsApp contacts, and that includes the 818 phone number associated with Mrs. Sementilli and a 907 phone number associated with Mr. Christopher Austin.
And what date is this that we're talking about?
Let's see, the date last changed June 13, 2017.
If I go back one slide to slide 59, this would have been on January 26th of 2017, 3 days after the murder, correct?
Yes,
The communication between Baker and Austin?
correct.
Okay. Moving forward to slide 61, what is this?
This is another screenshot from that WhatsApp subscriber information. This one is associated with that 213272 phone number affiliated with Mr. Baker. And it shows when the account was first created, when it was registered, and the first send, which is the first message, as well as underneath that a device name, and that's the sort of corporate name for a Samsung S6 device.
Okay. So this was a device that he had to have in his possession at the time this record was created on the day of the murder, correct? January 23rd.
Correct.
And the time, 2340, does that have to be adjusted for UTC, or is that in fact 1140 at night?
The WhatsApp records, unlike most of the other records we get, are actually in Pacific time.
Okay. So this is a record that was created at 1140 the night of the murder.
Yes.
Okay. Relative to the phone number we know is associated with Robert Baker.
Yes.
Okay. Looking here at slide 62 with respect to the defendant's phone number, what do we see here?
Essentially, it's the same record as far as the type. This is a WhatsApp business record. This one is associated with that 818424 phone number. And as before, it shows when the account was created, registered, and when the first message was sent.
Okay. So that would have been 4 days after the murder on January 27th.
Yes.
At somewhere around 8:34 in the morning.
Correct.
What do we see here in slide 63?
This is an artifact recovered from the iPhone associated to Mrs. Sementilli, and it has a contact entry in the phone for the WhatsApp account affiliated with Mr. Baker's phone number. And there's a push name, which is a display name of RB, and the number is listed as Louisa.
What is a display name or a push name? That's what comes up on your phone?
It's like a username.
Okay. And another linkage chart in slide 64. Explain what you have displayed here.
Sure. And it's similar to the Viber link chart. This is now one for WhatsApp, showing the connections and references across different devices and accounts, and the usage of WhatsApp to include the Samsung S8, the Samsung S6, which we know about from the WhatsApp records themselves, the iPhone 7 associated with Mrs. Sementilli, and the various phone numbers for all parties.
Okay. Looking at slide 65, Viber to WhatsApp timeline. What did you display here?
So in addition to showing kind of the linkages between these accounts, I like to see the context of these different accounts over time. And that's what I've done here, is essentially create a timeline for most of the data that we've already seen individually to put it in some sort of context. So starting at the top from the iCloud records, we have when Viber was first installed on the iPhone associated to Mrs. Sementilli, and we've got Viber activity spread across the AT&T web history. We've got Viber app updates also taking place over time in the iCloud records. We've got ongoing Viber chats between the account associated to Mr. Baker and Mrs. Sementilli from the end of 2016 through most of January. That's the 5,000 plus messages.
5,700?
5,700, yes. We've got log entries from the S4, from the iPhone. We've got the WhatsApp records themselves for the creation of new WhatsApp accounts, the direction from Mr. Baker's Facebook Messenger account to the Austin Facebook Messenger account to download WhatsApp, and then the creation of a WhatsApp account on January 27th by the phone number associated with Mrs. Sementilli.
Okay. So from this, we can see that prior to the murder, the defendant and Baker were using Viber as their encrypted app for means of communication, and then after the murder, they switched to using WhatsApp as their encrypted app.
Yes.
And what do we see here in slide 66?
So this is a business record from Facebook, from Mr. Baker's associated Facebook account, and it shows the removal of certain friends from that account. And there are two of them associated to Mr. Christopher Austin. The first one, the user is Christopher Austin, and the removal of that account was on January 26th, 2017. And the second one is a second account for Mr. Austin, Chris Vocals, and that one was removed June 1st, 2017.
Okay. So the first one, he's removing Austin as basically a friend from his Facebook account.
Yes.
January 26th, and at 1:52 a.m. local time, correct?
That's right.
And the second being another Facebook account for the same individual, Christopher Austin, under the name Chris Vocals on the June 1st date.
Yes.
All right. Let's look at slide 68. What do we see here?
This is some articles of incorporation obtained via the California Secretary of State Business Search. These are freely available to the public and can be downloaded. And this pertains to a company established called Oz Entertainment Group Incorporated by the agent of record noted here in the lower right, individual Robert Baker. And that was back in August 2002.
Looking here at slide 69, what did you capture?
This is a historical web shot of the OzEntertainmentGroup.com website, which originally was launched in 2004 approximately, and this is the website as it appeared in June of 2016, and it has a contact page, which is common for websites, that lists the email address admin@oeg1.com.
So what does that mean? Because we've seen this OEG email address or website before. Is that a domain?
It is a domain.
So what does that mean?
It's a website. Essentially, and if we can all together kind of flash back to before the social media era, individuals were launching websites quite commonly. And that still does happen. But in order to register a website, you have to pay a company like GoDaddy and put in registration information. And the image here shows a screenshot of what purports to be Mr. Baker's website from about June 2016, which seems to be affiliated with the business that he set up in the early 2000s.
So once you have a web domain, can you have multiple different email addresses for or through that web domain?
Yes, that's very common.
Okay. So you could have like the RBall one that we've seen or the OEG1.com. All of those would be
Yes.
various email addresses that you would have through the same website, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And if you use, as you were mentioning, GoDaddy, would that be a way to forward emails from your web domain to your email account?
So when you register a website, in the portal where you log in to sort of manage your website, you can choose to establish new email accounts. You can also have those email accounts forward to other email accounts, depending on the services offered by the company hosting that website.
Okay. So if he registered that website, Mr. Baker, that would mean that he would have control over all of those functions.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Looking here at slide 70, what does this depict?
These are some messages from Mr. Baker's Facebook account where he references RBall, and as an investigator, it gave me the context for what RBall was. It's shorthand for racquetball.
Okay. And here's slide 71. This is the domain registration we were talking about.
Yes.
And this also is not only in the name of Robert Baker, but it also has the Oz Entertainment as the organization name.
That's right.
With an associated, it looks like a P.O. box and another phone number, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when did this RBall 1 registration occur?
May 11th, 2015.
Looking here at slide 72, what does this show us?
These are artifacts from Mr. Baker's Samsung S4, and it shows a web history and some of the websites that particular device visited. This would have been on May 11th, 2015, and it shows rball1.com as the website.
Okay. And looking here at slide 73, what does this depict?
More information that corroborates the registration and renewals of the rball1.com website. This is from the records from the oeginc@gmail.com Google account, and this particular record comes from the mail that was produced, the email that was produced for that particular account, showing GoDaddy renewal information for his various websites.
Okay. And what do we see here in slide 74?
This is also from Mr. Baker's associated Facebook account. It appears to be a typo, probably intended to be league, but it has an email address of, I'm going to say league for lack of a better phrase, league@rball1.com.
Looking at slide 75, is this the auto forwarding service that you were talking about?
Yes, this is just a screenshot from GoDaddy themselves showing that, yes, in fact, you can set up auto forwarding through their service.
Okay. And what do we see here in slide 76? This is relative to Hotmail. So this is with respect to the defendant's Hotmail account, correct?
That's right. This would be that kalmati-mo@hotmail.com email account.
And what did you note here?
So the records themselves were voluminous, high volume, but they came in several file folders, and there was a folder entitled Recoverable Items /Deletions. So these were 4 emails that were deleted from that Hotmail account.
So of all of the emails contained within the mailbox, you found only 4 that had been deleted in the defendant's Hotmail account through the business records?
Yes, ma'am, only 4.
Is this through the business records or through the phone extraction?
This is, what we're seeing right here is from the Hotmail business records.
Okay. And were you able to determine what those 4 emails were?
Yes.
Okay. Let's look at slide 77. What did you depict here?
This just shows how voluminous the email was when I received it and started looking through it. So most folks nowadays get a lot of email spam. We have a large inbox of 12,760 messages. Sent messages were 1,682, but only 4 were deleted.
Okay. Looking here at slide 78, what does this show us?
This is also from the business records from Microsoft's Hotmail service, and this shows contacts, so email contacts in this particular case. And there was a highlighted entry here where I added the highlight that shows a log entry in that contact list for quick name Rob.
What's a quick name? Is that the same thing as what we were talking about earlier?
It's like a nickname or a username.
Okay.
So we have a username of Rob. We've got that 213-272-1093 phone number also listed there. And then the contact email is Diane@RBall1.com.
Okay. So that would be something that a user would, again, plug into their phone in order to decide how they wanted that particular individual to appear?
Yes.
Okay. And so out of the defendant's Hotmail account, this is how Rob Baker is identified in her phone or in her email.
In her email, yes.
Okay. Looking at slide 79, looking at iPhone contacts, what do we see here?
This now is an artifact from Mrs. Sementilli's iPhone, also showing the presence of the same Diane@RBall1.com email affiliated to a contact called Diane Racquetball in the phone.
Okay. And what did you note at the bottom with respect to this log entry with regarding the defendant's forensic cell phone extraction?
There were also 2 other email addresses in there for RBall1.com. One was lead@RBall1.com, and the other was rob@RBall1.
Okay, and that league at RBall1, I think a few slides ago, I'm going back to, I think this is slide 74, where you talked about there being a typo. This is the same league at RBall1 that we saw that was registered to Baker.
Yes.
All right, looking here at slide 80, with respect to those 4 deleted emails out of the thousands in the defendant's email account, what did you learn?
So this particular slide has screenshots of 3 of the 4 email addresses. And these emails sent from the kalmadimo@hotmail.com to this Diane@RBall1 email address pertained to the travel and itinerary of Mr. Fabio Sementilli.
So she sent an email to Robert Baker at this email account regarding her husband's travel itineraries.
Yes,
Okay. And then deleted it after she sent it.
correct.
You said that was 3 of them.
That was 3 of the 4 here.
Okay. And what do we see here that you've depicted in slide 81?
This is just a larger screenshot of one of the attachments in one of those 4 emails that shows one of the agenda items for some travels for Mr. Sementilli.
On the left, under where it says Wella.
Yes, on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, just to do a comparison, during the same time period, the Instagram account, Monica_Sementilli, was making posts that were tagged to the Woodland Hills area, seemed to indicate the extreme heat at that time.
Okay. So at the same time that she's sending travel itineraries to Robert Baker she is posting on her Instagram account?
In approximately the same time range.
In June of 2016.
Yes.
Early June of 2016. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. What do we see here in slide 82?
So this is the fourth of the 4 deleted emails from kamadimo@hotmail.com. And this particular email is a forward from a company called First Digital Surveillance to Diane at RBall1.com.
So does it indicate what date this was sent?
Yes.
And what date was that?
June 28th, 2016.
So on June 28th of 2016, the defendant forwards what's referred to in the subject line, First Digital Surveillance DVR System Operation and User Manual to Robert Baker.
The Hotmail account forwards exactly that.
And after she forwards that information, she then deletes it, the forwarded email, from her account.
The email then shows up in the deleted folder.
So that's the fourth out of the 4 deleted emails that you indicated you were able to, that you found in going through her email account.
Yes.
And what do we see depicted here in slide 83?
This is still part of that same email from First Digital Surveillance, the company. It's a long email, and the email includes instructions, specific instructions for how to log in to the home closed-circuit television system First Digital set up at the Sementilli residence. This particular slide shows that in order to log in, you have to input that specific IP address of 104.181.138.147.
The same IP address that we've seen now in multiple slides, including the one where Robert Baker, on this particular date, June 28th of 2016, saved the Sementilli IP address.
Yes.
And were you able to actually verify that that IP address was still valid?
Yes.
And how did you do that?
There was an Instagram post that was made in late January, and
By who?
By the account associated with Mrs. Sementilli, Monica_Sementilli.
Okay.
And the post shows Mr. Sementilli's chair, favorite chair, I think. And there's an IP address that's logged in the record that shows it's the same IP address at the house.
That was a photograph that was posted 2 days after her husband was murdered.
I'd have to look at the record, but yes.
And so in order for someone, again, as you were mentioning, to be able to remotely access the Sementilli CCTV or home surveillance system, that individual would need the information that we see here on this particular slide.
Correct.
And what did you indicate here in slide 84? Is this a continuation of that same deleted email that the defendant got from First Digital and forwarded to Baker and then deleted?
Yes.
And what does this indicate?
This is further down in that long email, and it shows some additional login information specifically for using the app called IDMSS Lite, which is for iPhone, in order to view one's closed-circuit television system the way First Digital has set it up.
Okay. And so this would have been an email that would have been deleted from the sent folder, correct?
Correct.
What do we see here that you've depicted in slide 85?
Just to get an understanding of what the app looks like, On the left-hand side is what the IDMSS app appears to be on Apple's store. And then there's also a Google Android version called GDMSS in their Android Play Store.
So if you're using an Apple iPhone, the IDMSS Lite would be the application you would use. However, if you're using an Android, like a Samsung, this would be the application one would use.
That's right.
Okay. And what did you show here in slide 86 relevant to the deleted email regarding access to the Sementilli home surveillance system?
So this is another record from Apple, and this particular record shows that the app, the IDMSS Lite app, was installed on the account associated with Mrs. Sementilli, and that it was installed on June 28th, 2016.
So she has that installed, and you were able to determine that from the actual business records from iCloud?
Yes.
And iCloud is an Apple product, correct?
Yes.
And if you have an iPhone, your iPhone, you can set your iPhone so that it will back up automatically to your iCloud?
You can choose what you want to sort of sync with Apple's servers. So they provide a service called iCloud, and they also keep meticulous records on their customers, including which apps are installed, which apps are purchased. This particular app, the IDMSS Lite app, was installed in relation to her account.
And that was something that you were able to view from reviewing the business records subpoenaed from Apple.
Yes.
Okay. Showing you slide 87. What did you depict here?
So this is an artifact from Mr. Baker's Samsung, and this shows that the email Diane at RBall1.com was automatically forwarded eventually to his oeginc@gmail.com email address.
What do we see here in slide 88 with this linkage chart?
This essentially shows the route of travel for that particular first digital surveillance email. So we have the kamarimo@hotmail.com in the lower left. We know that's associated with Mrs. Sementilli. Forwarded the first digital surveillance email. It then lands at the Diane at RBall1.com email address, and then is automatically forwarded to the Rob at oeg1.com email address, and finally lands in the oeginc@gmail.com account associated with Mr. Baker.
Okay. And when you mentioned his Samsung, this would have been the Samsung S4?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you actually confirm that the Sementilli CCTV or DVR instructions were actually found in Baker's inbox?
Yes.
From looking at his forensic extraction?
Yes, I did.
Okay. By the way, did you also have the opportunity to look at Fabio Sementilli, the victim in this case, the forensic extraction from his cell phone, which was also an Apple iPhone, number 67?
Yes, I did.
And did he have that installed on his cell phone?
He did not have the IDMSS Lite app.
Okay. And given that we know that we never recovered a Samsung S6 that you showed registered to Baker, you have no idea whether or not that application might have been on that cell phone that was never recovered, correct? You can't tell that from the records.
Objection. Facts on evidence regarding the owner of that Samsung.
Overruled.
That's correct.
Okay. Tell us what we see here in slide 89.
Yes, so this is that Instagram post I had spoken about a few moments ago from the Monica Sementilli Instagram account. And it shows the favorite chair of Mr. Sementilli with some cigar memorabilia, a baseball hat on top of it. And this post was made January 25th, 2017 at 10:31 local time. And it includes the IP address that was logged as part of Instagram's record.
This is showing us again 2 days after the murder, and that time 10:31, would that be AM?
Yes.
Okay. By the way, did you have an opportunity to review the victim's cell phone extraction for any potential conference calls on the date of installation, June 28th of 2016, of the CCTV with anybody from First Digital?
Yes, I did.
And were you able to find any indication that his phone was utilized for a conference call with anybody from First Digital on the date of installation, June 28th of 2016?
I was not.
Looking at the next slide here, which I believe is 90. Yes. What did you depict here?
So this is a single still of a video that will subsequently play, taken from the Target store. And this is on January 23rd, 2017. It depicts Mrs. Sementilli in the lower left-hand corner interacting with her smartphone.
That's her in the sweatshirt that we see in the background, the gray sweatshirt, black leggings, white pennies.
Yes, ma'am. Currently at the middle top of the screen.
And this is video footage that you got from robbery homicide detectives relating to the defendant's actions on the day of the murder, January 23rd of 2017 at 4:32 p.m.
That's right.
From the local Target store?
Yes.
What was the relevance of what we just saw?
As a digital investigator, attribution is very important. It's one of the reasons I do so much work to corroborate across all these different accounts. And in this particular video, Mrs. Sementilli is interacting with her phone, which to me as the investigator shows that she has full control of that device at that particular time.
Okay. Let's look at the next slide. I believe this is slide 92. What does this indicate?
This is an artifact from Mrs. Sementilli's iPhone, and it shows the presence of a log entry for the IDMSS Lite app with the most recent log entry on January 23rd, 2017.
At a particular time?
11:53 UTC.
And the 11:53, once it's converted, is that 3:53 in the afternoon?
3:53 in the afternoon, yes.
Okay. And does this indicate access through the home IP address?
No, I don't see the IP address on this particular file.
Okay. In terms of this particular artifact from the Celebrate extraction on her phone, were you able to gather any information from the data that is displayed here?
Sure. So in addition to the date and the timestamp that shows the most recent usage per the log of that particular app, it also shows the approximate amount of data that was coming in and going out of the phone, and that's shown in the center column where it says Wi-Fi in, Wi-Fi out, and then WAN in and WAN out. WAN stands for Wide Area Network. If this device was at home and connected to Wi-Fi, we would see data associated with the Wi-Fi, but because it's out in public, it's essentially using the data towers, the cell phone towers, to receive internet traffic. So here we have WAN in bytes and it's a fairly large number. Put my commas in. 32,092,462.
What's a byte?
A byte is a small unit of data. When we're talking about data actually being transmitted, it's bits. But it's similar, if you remember, for a long time we operated in the world of kilobytes, and then we went to megabytes and gigabytes, and now we're in a world of terabytes. So this is the smallest unit of measurement, which is bits of data being transmitted.
So since she's not at home, and as we saw in the video, she's connecting or using her phone, what does this indicate about that usage?
She's out and about in public. She's away far enough from the residence or other known Wi-Fi access points so that she's essentially getting whatever traffic is associated with the IDMSS Lite app is coming down from the local data tower, in this particular case, AT&T.
So it's being downloaded, the data, to her phone?
Yes, I like to use the analogy, what goes up must come down when it comes to the internet, as far as things that are uploaded can then be downloaded. She's the recipient on the receiving end of that, and so that's why it shows in instead of out, if that makes sense.
The one in versus one out?
Right.
Okay. So the records show the distinction?
Yes.
Okay. And with respect to the high data amount that you talked about, the 32 million, what is that consistent with?
So that's consistent with essentially streaming video. Video is a high bandwidth activity. If we think about watching movies on any of these services common nowadays like Netflix, it's a lot more data coming down as it's being downloaded than, say, a text message or just a simple photograph. Streaming video, even in 2017, is still a fairly sizable amount of data, a chunk.
Okay. Let's look at what we see in the AT&T records in slide 93 with respect to the data. What does this tell us?
So now we have AT&T internet records associated with that 818-424-4213 phone number, which is associated to Mrs. Sementilli. And this corroborates some of the data traffic found in that artifact off of the phone. Additionally, it shows that the IP address associated with the Sementilli residence was being accessed multiple times on January 23rd, local time, between a span of about 4 o'clock in the afternoon and 5:15 p.m.
So this would be a separate type of record that you're looking at for data, correct? That corroborates what we just saw with respect to the IDMSS Lite application data from her Celebrite, her forensic phone extraction.
Yes, so the previous slide was essentially the device, the phone itself. This particular record is pertaining to the tower, the AT&T data itself.
So would this be consistent with, when you said streaming video from her surveillance, her live surveillance feed from her CCTV cameras?
Yes, especially early on, it shows a spike, if you will, in data coming in via AT&T.
Why is that important?
It's consistent with the streaming of video.
Okay. I have a one-page document that has AT&T record regarding the defendant's cell phone 818-424-4213. May it be marked as People's 161. And I believe that this record, along with other AT&T records, are contained on a DVD, which we've marked as Exhibit 156. Showing you Exhibit 161. Can you describe for us what we're looking at here?
Just shown. This includes all of the logged activity in that AT&T data record for that home IP address of 104.181.138.147. And there are a total of 10 entries between 4 o'clock in the afternoon and 5:15.
10 entries to the home IP address?
Yes.
Did I have you explain this? The AT&T mobility records, this also shows, this corroborates what we just looked at, correct?
Yes, so AT&T, very meticulous in their record keeping, has another set of records that shows all the data coming in to that particular device. It doesn't show IP addresses like the other record did, but this one does show bytes down, and consistent with the other information we've just seen, it shows, again, a surge in downloaded activity coming into that device.
What is that surge consistent with? The same thing we've been talking about, accessing the CCTV cameras through your home IP address onto your phone while you're remote outside of your home?
Yes.
Okay. Looking at slide 95, another linkage chart, what do we see here?
This is my visual representation of everything I just talked about to hopefully help it make sense. In the bottom left-hand corner, we've got the app, where the user would open up and log in and view the actual video footage itself. And the app resides one step up on the device, on the phone, and the phone is getting its internet traffic off of a nearby cell tower, which is operated by AT&T. In order then to access everything at home, the information at home, it has to have the IP address, the 104.181 IP address. It hits the router back at home. Then it goes to the actual DVR system, a box. And the box is getting video from the cameras themselves. So that's kind of the route of travel as it goes from back home to the device, the phone.
Which would be consistent with all the different types of business records we just looked at.
Yes.
I'll go back for a moment to slides 93 and 94. Looking first at slide 93, in the far left column under time UTC, it has the date of January 24th. But adjusting for UTC would change that date as well as the time back to the 23rd. Is that correct?
That's right.
I just want to make sure that's clear. So again, where we see January 24th, above that column, it says time in parentheses, it says UTC, meaning it has not yet been adjusted for California time.
That's correct.
Again, if we look at the column where it says, I think it says CON dot date, that'd be connection date.
Connection date and connection time, yes.
Yes. Again, those halfway down under the second gray area bar where it says the 24th, again, these dates along with the times would have to be adjusted for California time, correct?
That's right.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're clear. Not working?
I also wanted to clarify, we've been talking a lot about an IP address. What is an IP address?
So an IP address essentially is an address that exists for devices and connections on the internet. And it's similar to a real-world physical address. It's the way the internet communicates from one point A, to point B. And it routes the traffic from one address to another.
So, given that we're talking about an address, if we're talking about the home IP address, does that assist you in determining that in fact the defendant is accessing her home CCTV system or her DVR system because it's going through her home IP address as opposed to, let's say, a website?
The instructions that we saw from First Digital Surveillance made it very clear that in order to access that home DVR system, you had to input that specific IP address. And that IP address being similar to a physical address means it was unique. At least for that period of time, it was associated with the Sementilli residence.
Bless you. So that tells you that rather than being on her phone and accessing some website, the records that we've talked about in terms of her home IP address is showing that she's accessing her home IP address during that period of time that we were discussing.
Yes, because it's unique. And just to give you an example, if it was a different service, a different streaming service like YouTube or Netflix, those would all have different IP addresses, whereas I know that this IP address was located in the instructions to log in, and now on the flip side of that, inside the AT&T data records.
Okay. And again, within those data records showing the home IP address, we also know that to access your CCTV or your home surveillance cameras remotely, that you still have to go through your home IP address in order to access the DVR, the box itself, correct?
Yes, it's kind of like dialing direct to that box.
Yeah. All right, let's look at slide 97. And is this a screenshot that you took of the defendant's Instagram account?
Yes, it is.
And what did you note here?
So this is the account for the Instagram Monica_Sementilli as it appeared to the public on a computer for anyone logged into Instagram. This is what it would look like. And this was circa March 2017.
Okay. So not only is it under her name, but she also has a photograph of herself.
That's right.
And did you go through her Instagram account based on the records that were subpoenaed from, at that point, it would have been Facebook?
Yes.
And did you note that her Instagram account was also linked to her email or her Hotmail account?
Yes, I did.
Looking here at slide 98, is this a screenshot of some of the business records associated with the defendant's Instagram account?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you note here?
This account includes the basic subscriber information at the top, and in contrast to what we see in the public account, this is what the records look like when we get them directly from Facebook, Instagram, Meta. In this particular account, it was registered to the email address kalmatimo@hotmail.com.
And looking here at slide 99, which is part of the Celebrate extract from her iPhone 119, what do we see here?
This is an artifact from the iPhone, and it shows a user account that matches the same Instagram username we've been discussing, the Monica_Sementilli username.
And so in terms of her public Instagram account, were you able to download information directly from her public account?
Yes, because it was public, all the photographs and videos were accessible.
And in terms of that public account where you were able to find photographs and video, did you also note several photographs that the defendant posted of herself,
Yes.
and also photographs of her husband who was murdered, Fabio Sementilli.
Yes, I did.
Looking here at slide 100, what does this depict?
Just to give an example of how voluminous these records are, this is an example of what the records look like when they come back from the companies, and they can be thousands of pages. It doesn't look like the Instagram many of us use when we log in, but this is kind of the back end on Meta's servers.
Okay. The actual business records that we get through subpoenas.
Yes.
Okay. And looking here at exhibit or slide 101, what does this depict?
So this shows that the content that was made public on the account was something that I downloaded just publicly, in addition to reviewing the records.
Okay. And I noticed that there are several locations where it's just a black box. That's where you blacked out photographs of Fabio Sementilli per court order, correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
All right. Looking here at slide 102, where it's titled iCloud Photographs, what does this depict?
This is an example when we get the records back from Apple. Apple operates the iCloud service. They appear in a folder structure like this, and it can include whatever the user decides to back up. In this particular case, I've highlighted the cloud photo library, which would be the photos that are automatically uploaded into iCloud.
And it's titled according to what the user has titled, or is it an automatic title in this particular case where it says Cloud Photo Library?
It can be both.
Okay. And so, like we were talking about earlier, Apple's iCloud is a source for backing up any Apple products you might have, such as an iPhone.
Yes.
So if you were taking photographs using your iPhone, assuming that you had your settings set to back up to iCloud, they would also appear in your iCloud account.
Correct.
Looking at slide 103, bless you, what do we see here?
This is just a small sample of the, again, voluminous records from, in this case, Apple iCloud. There are a total of 1,300 images, and this is just a sample of what those images look like when we open up the folder.
Okay. And by the way, in terms of what you saw in the iCloud account, did those photographs or the content also match what was publicly posted in many occasions on the defendant's Instagram account?
In many occasions, yes.
Okay. Moving to slide 104, this appears to be a timeline between the dates of January 25th and February 14th of 2017. What have you indicated here?
I created this timeline, and the subsequent slides are also part of this extended timeline to show the public posts from the Instagram accounts and how they appear kind of over time in the context of some other activity.
Okay. And the first slide is a photograph that we've seen in a prior photograph in your presentation. Were there also photographs above or included with each of the posts that we see here of Fabio Sementilli that you have redacted again per court order?
Yes.
And let me go back for 1 second to slide 103. When you look through the defendant's iCloud account that was obtained via search warrant, you talked about there being approximately 1,300 images and video. Did many of those images or video also contain metadata or, let's say, geographic information as well as date and time?
Well, they all have some sort of metadata, and metadata is data about data. It's information that's attached to things like photos and videos that describe when it was taken, what sort of camera was used. And in some cases, there was also latitude and longitude coordinates.
Which would give you a location?
Yes.
Okay. In terms of the Instagram account, let's go on to slide 105. Again, between the dates of February 15th and 17th, we see that there are 3 posts. Did these posts, again, contain photographs of Fabio Sementilli that went along with the actual language that appears regarding Fabio Sementilli?
Yes, they did.
And slide 106, again, what did you indicate here?
The yellow indicates additional Instagram posts, and then the green are some notations pertaining to some physical surveillance that LAPD did.
So on the far left, or the 3 in yellow, to the left and to the center, between the dates, looks like February 18th and February 20th, those are posts that the defendant made on her public Instagram account. They were accompanied by photographs of Fabio Sementilli.
Yes.
The one on the right, February 21st, is an indication based on surveillance done by LAPD of the defendant along with Robert Baker being surveilled on Melrose at the Parlor Bar.
That's correct.
Okay. So we have the 18th and 20th posts about her husband, and then the February 21st being observed actually out with Mr. Baker at a bar.
Yes.
Okay. Looking at 107, what do we see here?
Similar to the previous slides, this is an extension of that broader timeline. This particular case, it goes February 21st to February 22nd. Again, the green is a reference to some notes about physical surveillance that was done, and the yellow goes back to the Instagram posts following that.
Okay. So in green, again, surveillance of the defendant along with Baker at the dime bar, as well as kissing a bouncer outside of the dime bar on February 22nd, and then later in the morning on February 22nd, posts to the public Instagram account with respect to her dead husband.
Yes.
What do we see here in 108?
Further continuation of public Instagram posts, and originally these would be photographs of Mr. Fabio Sementilli. These posts run from February 23rd to February 28th, 2017.
And once again, these are public posts that the defendant put out through her public Instagram accounts, all of them about her dead husband between the dates of February 23rd to February 28th of 2017.
That's correct.
Okay. And what do we see in slide 109?
These are more Instagram posts, left to right, March 1st through March 6th, 2017.
And there's a photograph, it looks like to the left of the defendant. Is that right?
Yes.
And did these also contain, these posts contain photographs of Fabio Sementilli?
Yes, they did.
And what about here, March 7th to March 9th? What did you depict in slide 110?
The first 2 posts left to right are Instagram posts, and the subsequent ones that are in green to the right are more physical surveillance.
So this is surveillance photos. The LAPD took during their following of the defendant and Baker on, looks like March 9th of 2017.
That's right.
And once again, did these posts from March 7th and 8th contain photographs of the victim, in this case, Fabio Sementilli?
Yes, they did.
And what you've indicated here on the surveillance photos from SIS, is SIS a surveillance unit that assists the robbery homicide division detectives often?
Yes, they are.
And what does SIS stand for?
Special Investigative Section.
Okay. And in these photographs here of the defendant and Baker, they are photographs that were taken on that date, March 9th.
Yes, by the surveillance unit.
And on slide 111, what do we see here?
The first two date and time notations are from physical surveillance again, and the one on the far right is a public Instagram post.
Okay, and that public Instagram post, once again, did it contain a photograph of the defendant's husband, Fabio Sementilli?
Yes.
And the ones in green regarding SIS, that is observations or surveillance that was done by SIS of the defendant and Baker. The one to the far left on March 9th at 8:16 p.m. at a place called the Goodnight Bar, and the one in the center, March 9th at 9:15 at the Laugh Factory on Sunset Boulevard.
Yes, sorry, 9:05.
Thank you. And what do we see here in slide, I think this one says slide 112? Yes.
This is another section of time from March 14th through March 17th, including 5 Instagram posts that were made public.
Okay. And the one in the center, it looks like a portion of a wedding photo of the defendant. Was the defendant's husband also included in that photo, as well as photos of him in the other public Instagram posts on this particular slide?
Yes.
And what do we see here in slide 113, March 18th to March 21st?
More Instagram posts, 3 of them ranging from March 18th through March 21st, 2017.
And once again, same question. Did the defendant include photographs of her dead husband along with the posts that she put out there into the public realm?
Objection. At this point, I'm going to object. Excuse me.
So we were.
Yes.
Okay. And here we see on slide 114 the dates of March 22nd to March 23rd. What did you include here?
So the first post in yellow is a public Instagram post made by the Monica_Sementilli account. And then there are photographs from the Vidara Hotel and Spa and some photographs from Las Vegas that were obtained via the iCloud account.
Okay. So the Instagram post on March 22nd in yellow to the left, did that contain a photograph of Fabio Sementilli?
Yes.
And the other photographs are of the hotel and spa, as well as the hotel room, and it looks like on the far right, cash out voucher for gambling in Las Vegas during the same time period?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to slide 115, the dates of March 24th to March 26th. What is this that we're seeing here?
The first thing we have on the far left is an Instagram post, and then this is followed by more photographs from the iCloud account.
Photographs of the defendant along with Robert Baker in Las Vegas.
Yes.
And with respect to the photographs from Las Vegas, was there also geolocation data that confirmed they were in Las Vegas when these photographs were taken?
For some of the photos, yes.
Looking at the next slide, I think it's 116. I think this is exactly what I was just asking you about. Between the dates of March 24th and March 26th, what does this show us?
So just as we were just discussing just now, these are the photographs from the iCloud account that did have metadata to include locational information that resolved to Las Vegas.
Looking at 117, was that again a second photograph that had metadata that proved that they were in Las Vegas during this time period?
It's a photograph that had the metadata that had those coordinates, yes.
Okay. Looking here at slide, I think this one's 118. What did you depict here?
It's another series of photographs on the left-hand side, March 26, 2017, from the iCloud. And then in green, some checkout information for the hotel and spa on March 26th at 10:41 a.m. And the next two posts were of public Instagram content.
And again, did those public Instagram posts contain photographs of Fabio Sementilli?
Yes, they did.
And what do we see here in slide 119 that you've captured?
As before, these particular photographs from the iCloud had specific geotag coordinates that came back to Las Vegas, and I've simply put them on the map here.
Okay. Along with the particular photograph of the defendant, Mr. Baker, and a third individual, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What do we see here in slide 120?
Same thing, another series of, another individual photograph from that series of the iCloud that had geotag coordinates to Las Vegas.
Okay. Along with a photograph of the defendant and Mr. Baker?
Yes.
And again, the same thing in slide 121 during the same type period?
Yes, same thing, geotag location to this particular photograph to Las Vegas.
And also in slide 122, another photograph of the two of them in Las Vegas?
Yes, same thing.
Okay. What do we see here in slide 130 for this timeline that goes from March 30th to April 6th? This one was 122, this one's 123, I believe. Is it?
You said 130.
Oh. 123?
Yes, for slide 123, the timeline goes from March 30th through April 6th, 2017, and includes 6 separate posts from the public Instagram account.
Okay. And again, did these posts contain photographs of the victim in this case, Fabio Sementilli?
Yes, they did.
Looking at slide 124, April 8th to April 16th of 2017. Once again, are these 6 separate Instagram posts on the defendant's public account?
Yes, that's correct.
And did each of those also contain photographs of the victim?
Yes.
Okay. Looking at slide, I think it's 125, 5 separate Instagram posts between April 19th and May 1st. Did these also come from the defendant's public Instagram account?
Yes, they did.
And the posts where we don't see a photograph or we only see a half a photograph, did those again contain photographs of the victim in this case?
That's correct.
All right. May 1st through May 7th on slide 126. What are we looking at here?
So this is another mixed timeline excerpt. It starts from May 1st, it goes through May 7th, and includes at first an Instagram post on the left, and then some information about a trip to Las Vegas again, followed by more public Instagram posts.
And again, did the metadata on any of these photographs that we see at the top 4 photographs, confirm the Las Vegas location?
Some of them.
And with respect to the Instagram posts from that same time period relating to Fabio Sementilli, did they also contain photographs of the victim in this case?
Yes.
So at the same time as the defendant's in Las Vegas, and these photographs are being taken because you found them in her iCloud account, you also have the public Instagrams and what she's posting at the same time.
Not at the exact same time, but overlapping in terms of dates.
Between this time period of May 1st to May 7th, 2017.
Yes.
And looking at slide 127, the timeline here between May 9th and May 14th, what do we see here?
These are more public Instagram posts.
And the ones relating, again, to Fabio Sementilli were their photographs that were posted on the public Instagram account belonging to the defendant.
Yes.
May 16th through May 22nd, slide 128, can you describe for us what we see here?
Sure. 4 more Instagram posts, left to right.
Okay. And the one that we see a photograph, does that appear to be a letter or a note that was written by Fabio Sementilli to the defendant that she actually posted in her Instagram account?
Yes.
Signed, Fabio?
Correct.
Okay. Looking here at slide 129, the timeline at the top has the dates of May 25th through May 31st. What do we see here?
So these are some artifacts pertaining to a trip to Myrtle Beach from May 25th to May 29th, 2017. It includes a receipt from Expedia.com about travel plans and a photograph of Mrs. Sementilli out in Myrtle Beach area. And now on the right-hand side, public Instagram posts.
And again, with respect to the 2 yellow public Instagram posts that are dated May 29th and May 31st, the May 29th one, did that also contain a photograph of Fabio?
Yes.
Looking at slide 130, June 1st to June 7th, what do we see here?
On the left-hand side is another public Instagram post. And on the right-hand side now is some additional analysis from Mrs. Sementilli's associated LG tablet that contained some web search history, in this particular case from a website called Quora, Q-U-O-R-A. And the title of the website, or the question that was posed to Quora, is how do you know if your cell phone is being tapped by police?
And on the far left, the Instagram post from June 1st, did that contain a photograph of Fabio Sementilli?
Yes, it did.
And the post towards the center in black, that's for, looks like a post regarding the Mirror Awards, correct?
Yes.
And then what's the extraction report? That is relative to the Celebrite that was done on the LG tablet?
Yes, it's an export of that particular artifact, and then sitting right above that is a screenshot of what that website looks like.
Okay. Looking at slide 131, it says additional June 7th LG web searches. What did you indicate here?
Similar to the previous slide, there were some artifacts pertaining to the web search history on the LG tablet associated with Mrs. Sementilli. And these particular websites were about inquiries in regards to police and our ability to read iMessages, spying on cell phones, and the tapping of phones.
What do we see here in slide 1, I think it's 132?
Yes, this is a screenshot of one of those artifacts from the web history I just discussed.
Okay. So the actual, if you were to plug in or query what you saw on the LG pad through the Celebrite extraction, this is the article that would come up?
Correct.
Okay. And what do we see here in slide 133?
This is another screenshot of a particular website that was an artifact on the LG tablet.
Again, 5 things to know about police cell phone spying.
Yes,
So relating to the same subject that we were talking about.
that's right.
Okay. And what about here in slide 134?
Similar to the previous couple of slides, this is also a screenshot from an artifact off of the LG tablet. And this is a screenshot of a Quora, a question that was posed to the internet about which type of phones could be tapped.
Looking at slide 135, what do we see here?
Another screenshot pertaining to the artifacts left behind on the LG tablet. This one was from a website, and the article was 6 possible signs your cell phone may be tapped.
And that's the article that would come up if you put in that query?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what do we see here in slide 136 relative to the defendant's Apple iPhone, number 119?
So this is but one of many log entries in the iPhone associated with Mrs. Sementilli regards to a web service called Lifestyle Lounge. And
When you say many, can you give us an estimate?
sure, there's actually a number on here. So there were 1,572 log entries in the web history for Lifestyle Lounge.
So that means that from the defendant's iPhone, she logged into this particular website over 1,500 times.
Either logged into or navigated to, depending.
Either way, access that particular website.
Yes.
Is there also, did you look into this Lifestyle Lounge website?
Yes.
And is there actually a chat feature within the website itself where you can talk to other individuals who have also logged on to this website?
Yes. So once you create an account with this particular service, a user can log in, and then internal to the platform, the website, you can have a chat with other people.
Well, I have 3 pages that are titled Lifestyle Lounge. There's a 1, 2, and 3 in the bottom left corner. Could they be marked, please, as People's 162 collectively?
Yes.
The first page. Is this the website for the Lifestyle Lounge?
Yes, it is.
And does it actually indicate on the first page of the website itself that you can also not just chat, but you can video chat with other individuals through this website?
That's right.
Showing you page 2 of this website. What do we see here?
These are various user profiles or sample user profiles associated with accounts on Lifestyle Lounge.
And with respect to this particular website, besides being able to chat or video chat with individuals, is there also the ability to instant message individuals through the website?
Yes.
Showing you the third page. Is this also part of a screenshot that you took from that same Lifestyle Lounge website?
Yes, this is from their help page, for lack of a better word. Provides instructions.
If one were to log on to that website, let's say from a remote location outside of your house, that would direct you directly to the website, not through your home's IP address, correct?
If I may clarify.
Yes.
If you're on a mobile device and you're out and about and you navigate to Lifestyle Lounge, you will be accessing Lifestyle Lounge's servers, Lifestyle Lounge's IP addresses, not your home IP address.
Okay. I want to direct your attention to the date of August 25th of 2017. Were you assisting the investigating officers that day in recovering some evidence here in the criminal courts building?
Yes, I did.
And on that particular day, August 25th of 2017, were you and one of the investigating officers looking through some of the belongings relating to the defendant that were obtained from her property bag from the sheriff's department that runs this building?
Yes.
And can you tell us, did you meet that day with a Sergeant Robert Westfall?
Yes, we did.
And where, what did you exactly look at that day? What were you provided?
They were essentially jail letters, jail correspondence between Mr. Baker and Mrs. Sementilli.
Okay. And were those, as I said, taken from the defendant's property bag that was kept by sheriffs while she was in court here, in this courtroom?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you do with respect to the property bag?
I opened the bag and withdrew the letters.
Okay. And what, if anything, did you note at that point?
So I reached my hand into the bag, and almost immediately as I pulled the letters out, I realized they were coated in some sort of substance.
Okay. Oh, some type of wet substance?
Yes.
Further.
Thank you, Your Honor.